Hey there, and welcome back to Channel 64. I think today we're going to take a break from making some large builds and actually do a little bit of housekeeping around the base. And that includes creating some places for, well, copper oxidation, moving in some of our villagers, and possibly moving some other things around. You never know what we'll get up to. So I think we're going to start things off with actually digging out the rest of these pathways here. That means we're going to have to move this guy. Same with over there, because I need to start planning for some of the future areas that we have. And the original idea, of course, was continuing these hallways out in the different cardinal directions. Along with that, we also have to go up and see about, filling out a second story as well. So let's go ahead and start by clearing these two hallways out and see where that takes us. Okay, so we're back, and progress has been made, as well as a lot of time has passed. So as you can see, we've dug out the two different sides here. I went ahead and lit those up as well so we don't get any mob spawns. So now we have our 4 cardinal directions dug out. Also, we started moving in some of the villagers into our build as well. So you may remember we had set up some stuff with Axolotl Woman to have different villagers working the crops. So we have those done, at least on the bottom 2 levels here, and we've got to peek real fast. You can see they're hard at work. The problem is right now I don't actually have anything collecting the crops yet. This was actually left over from when we dumped the villager in there, so I actually need to crawl in there and break that. But as you see, our collection system is non-existent yet, so that's something I gotta do and get back there at some point and fix that. But that's a later problem. So we've got our villager that was down in the wall earlier. He's up here chilling in a boat. And then of course we have our breeder set up right here. And this is from actually our live stream, which was last weekend. We did a stream day and we've got some villagers in our breeder. And now we've got some spare villagers that will be going into our eventual trading hall here. And of course, right now we've set these up to go down into the different farming pods. But first, before we get some more villagers in there, we will get that completed. I have a bigger project. Well, I should say it's a project that kind of became a bigger project. So let's head on over to this hallway right here. So I'm going to be doing a ton of digging because, well, you know how it goes. You decide that you want to build something small, and then it gets huge and elaborate, and well, that's what we've got. It's going to be a copper oxidation setup. So previously, I hear which. Previously, we had just a giant room where you could just kind of come in here and place blocks down and all that. Unfortunately, with the setup that we have right here, there's not a lot of space. I mean, we could probably put a little bit of, we could probably put a decent sized room in here, but that's not what we're going to do. We are going to make a fully automated system for oxidizing copper. And I'm very excited because this is going to be some pretty awesome, unique redstone that's inspired by actually one of the other farms that we have. And we'll go in the greater details about that a little bit later on. But unfortunately, I have to dig out a lot of blocks. There's going to be a very large hole. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and get to some digging. And this time you get to watch. All right, so as you saw, this was a very large hole, so we had to stick a very large farm inside. So this is my own custom design, which I love this thing to death. I've been always wanting a custom automated copper oxidation farm because oxidating copper is the most boring thing in the world, and it is also very hard to just kind of automate. You normally have to like put them all down in a giant field or dedicate a room to it where you put them down and then have to gather them up. This does everything for me. So it's kind of hard to see, but I'll try to show you everything real quick. So we walk on in here real fast. So what we end up having to do is we place copper along this block right here. And so what this machine does, it actually spaces out the copper the correct amount of distance using this gravel buffer. So copper oxidizes the fastest when there's at least 4 blocks of space in between different copper blocks. And as you see, no matter where the copper is in this farm, it is always 4 blocks away from any other copper blocks, both horizontally and vertically. So this machine is basically this giant chain feed, belt feed, if you will, that basically pushes the copper through this giant maze, kind of snaking its way through the machine, dropping down each level and continuing to snake its way through everything. And it does this through 8 different levels until we get down to the end. And by the time it gets down here, most of it is fully oxidized. Now, not everything. There are going to be some that are at different states, but that's fine. So it's going to be mostly oxidized by the time it gets down here. And then the best part about this, because these blocks get recycled. And so it actually will end up going down here. And then we have a giant gravel elevator that basically pushes everything to the top all the way into actually well above where we're right here, AFK. So pushes everything to the top and then comes right back down again. And so we actually need this very tall stack of gravel to act as a buffer, because as you can imagine, the process of pushing copper from here and then having it go all the way through and all the way down takes some time. And so if we didn't have a large enough buffer of gravel, we actually wouldn't be able to run this machine constantly. We'd have some parts where we'd have to stop and wait for the gravel to come. But now, since I've done some thorough testing on this, this is enough gravel to actually propagate everything into the machine. And by the time we get not even through halfway of the stack, I believe it actually ends up starting to feed back through here again. So then once the copper ends up making its way all the way down here, then of course it goes into a blast chamber with a TNT duper. Now, if you have a keen eye, you may recognize this as the TNT duper blast chamber setup that we have on IcebergLettuce's mangrove tree farm, which we actually have up on the surface. And it is. I made a slight modification to it. Their design previously fires every 4 times this observer updates. So it's basically pushing down 4 rows and then it fires. Because the blast resistance to copper is a little higher than logs, I'm firing it twice as fast, or twice as often, I should say. So that's why we have a row of redstone dust instead of another piston observer combo to trigger this. What else? So all of these are 0-tick smart pistons. So basically, as soon as something hits this, it's immediately pushed over here without delay. And this, I believe, is an Ilmango design. It's pretty awesome. And so we have those most of the way around here. The only time we actually slow it down a bit is actually on this drop. And the way this is spaced out, we purposely put the solid copper block first, because if the gravel drops first, actually it will break because of this piston firing. If it lands on the piston while it's moving and the block is dropping as a falling block entity, it will end up as an item. So we slow it down or kind of throttle it using this copper block, and this goes through the system. And actually, The rest of the layers, aside from this top one, even though we have these zero-tick smart pistons, they're actually much slower, and that's thanks to the slower piston setup right here. And of course, since that's pushing this at a slower rate, then it's going to be moving that rate all throughout here. So this is probably overkill, but I'd rather have it overkill than to add any more delay into the system. Up top here, this is going to be similar to the vertical item pushers that we have, or vertical block pushers that I believe are also in the mangrove tree farm. I put these sideways though, so this actually pushes 5 blocks each time. So each time we place this block right here, we've got this trapdoor that goes up to prevent us from placing additional blocks to mess up any of the order that's going there. So this actually times us perfectly, and by the time this comes down after a short delay, a pulse extender right here, then the gravel has already come down and put in place, and we can go. So I'm going to go ahead, and I believe that there's some copper in here. This setup, we're going to put our copper, and then it feeds through this dropper that basically gives us one every time we end up placing one down. So we should never run out of copper until we actually run out of copper. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab a couple of those right there. We're going to go ahead and then placing this block basically starts the whole farm. And so I like actually aiming towards the top here just in case. So you can hear all the pistons firing. We'll get a few going, and then we'll hop in the free cam to take a look at what's going on down below. All right, now that that's going, let's take a look. So you can see it's this giant conveyor system that basically pushes all the blocks around. And then once we get down here, you'll see the gravel gets pushed over, and then the gravel elevator pushes everything up. And then we split off our copper to go into the blast chamber over here. So it's very fun to watch. It's kind of everything's moving around. It's a very kinetic machine. Oh, we have right here, we have a perfect example of those getting pushed down. So as you see, it pushes this first block down, and then we let gravity kind of take care of the rest with the timings. And then you can see the gravel elevator. These are fun. I had to look up this design. This is actually early Minecraft. People actually used to use these as elevators themselves. So it's a very similar design. It basically a few different piston setups. We have the sticky pistons that pull in the block, and then of course, a block that pushes up. All right, and then everything stopped because I've stopped putting blocks into the system. So what's great about this is I can basically fill in more blocks into the system, come back later, they'll all oxidize, put more blocks into the system, and so on and so forth. And so we can actually AFK here if I'd like, and everything would be oxidized when I come back, which is pretty great. And then of course our finished materials come here. We had a little bit of a problem with the TNT duper earlier, so that's why my pistons are in there. But as you can see, we have some exposed and weathered copper, which is fine because I do end up using all different types of copper, so I don't need everything fully oxidized. But it means by the time I come back for a lot of this, it will be fully oxidized. I mean, all those down there are pretty much ready to go. So I'm very excited about this. It's nice to actually have a copper oxidation system now. And it's not David. It's my own design. Mostly. Aside from, the dupers and all that fun stuff. Plus, it just looks very impressive. I mean, this hole is really large. You can actually fly around in there quite a bit. And, which is kind of funny, all the way down the bottom here, actually in the direct center, and if I put the overlay on, maybe. There we go. So if I put the overlay on, you'll see that we have a slime chunk right in the middle too. So we could actually have a quite inefficient slime farm right here if we want to, or even more efficient if I dug it out a little bit. We could, you know, add some layers and have slime in there, but that's optional. But yeah, we do get the occasional slime down here every once in a while. All right, so I think that's all the projects we're gonna do for now on the inside. I do want to decorate some of these halls a bit, kind of take all the stone out so we're not really just a ton of stone. I started experimenting with kind of a block palette for that, so I'm bringing the cyan concrete from in here out, and then I think this is maybe a little bit dark. We may end up going with the lighter gray on that, but I do like this, you know, kind of caution barrier. That's pretty cool. But I think that's all the time we have for now. It's a little bit fun to actually get into some more redstone farms and even custom designing stuff. I haven't really gotten a chance to do that for a while, so pretty exciting. And then I think it's time to get back to adding some more areas to the base for our other robot masters. So we'll have to get to that right away. Anyways, I hope you liked the episode. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like if you liked it, and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, 'cause I don't want you to miss a thing. And until next time, safe travels, everyone.